You know, these are the types of deals that get me excited to be a Palantir shareholder. It's stuff like this that happens that not only gets me excited to cover the company and all of the complexities and intricacies that are happening with this company. One day, the chairman of the company is leaving the board of another $600 billion social network because he is so famous and so popular and so much of a, I guess you could call it, entrepreneurial genius that he co-founded Palantir and he's on the board of Facebook because he was the first investment check into Facebook. That's breaking news. You got to analyze that. And then the next day, one of the Spac investments that has been a heavily criticized strategy by the company that you're covering ends up making the front page with Joe Biden, the current president of the United States, with Joe Biden saying, hey, company that Palantir invested in, I don't even know if Biden knows that Palantir invested in this company, you're going to start making a bunch of your product in the United States and making some jobs in the United States. You're going to make me look good because I'm like fulfilling my climate change agenda because of what you guys are doing. And this SPAC is only going to get bigger and bigger and bigger, which will hopefully make Palantir more and more money on their investment. Yes, everybody, we are talking about tritium charging. If you know nothing about tritium charging, before you even finish watching this video, really do yourself a favor and watch the video I did on them about 2 weeks ago. I talked about Palantir's master plan with Tritium and Wejo, which are two of the SPACs they invested in and within their SPAC strategy. If you don't know what their SPAC strategy is, you can watch another video I did on that. But basically, they take a lot of capital and they invested in these companies that are using data to drive their operations because Palantir is a data-driven company. Tritium is an electric vehicle charging manufacturer, and Wejo creates connected vehicle data at scale and basically sells that connected vehicle data to a bunch of different car companies and car manufacturers. Both are doing very complicated things in the world of electric vehicles, autonomous vehicles, and ultimately vehicles that are going to be the next generation of how people transport and how people engage with mobility. Palantir was like, hey, these two companies are doing some pretty good stuff. Let's throw a bunch of money in. Let's have some equity stakes. Let's also have these platforms literally build their entire operating systems on Palantir Foundry. Let's initiate new products with them, which is what Palantir did with Wejo. Palantir and Wejo created an electric vehicle operating system software. And then Tritium is an electric vehicle charging manufacturer that's likely using that software that Palantir created with another one of its SPACs. So that video that I did basically sort of summed up this like cacophony of stuff that's going on. I don't know if I used that word correctly, but let's assume I used that word correctly, in which these three things are happening together at the same time. Now, what happened today? Today, President Biden, today's what, January 9th, 2022. You're watching this on January or February 10th. President Joe Biden and Tritium CEO Jane Hunter will announce that the Australian electric charging company, this is reported from Bloomberg, is planning to build its first U.S. manufacturing facility. So Tritium is an Australian EV charging station manufacturer and is coming to the U.S. Biden tweets, I'm looking forward to hosting the folks from Tritium at the White House today. Like manufacturers large and small, they're creating good-paying jobs, building the future right here in America. Investments like these are why I fought so hard for the bipartisan infrastructure law. I'm loving this. Tritium quote tweets Biden. They say, we're on a simple mission, electrify transportation. With POTUS bipartisanship infrastructure law, POTUS is just like the @ handle for President of the United States on Twitter, a future with cleaner air awaits the American people. With more onshore manufacturing and jobs, fuel security, and electric vehicles that are simply a joy to drive and own. As a result, when President Biden is like making this announcement, there is literally a Tritium charging station, and I'll put a photo of it right here so you guys can see what I was talking about, on the stage while Biden is talking about his new agenda. I mean, this is insane. You have a Palantir SPAC that is now bringing its operations, its manufacturing operations, and you know presidents, if you're bringing jobs to their country or their state, when manufacturing jobs that are going to pay well, and fits their agenda, because this is all about electric vehicles and clean air and climate change, and electric vehicle charging stations you need to modernize the infrastructure if you're going to have tons of electric cars, and it fits Biden's agenda, and you're bringing it to the United States, that's a good look on the president, and that's an amazing look on the company. And for a shareholder of Palantir, it's a phenomenal look because Palantir invested in that company. So let's read a little bit off this Bloomberg release right here. The Tritium factory could make as many as 30,000 chargers annually. That would be a global leader in the electric vehicle charging space that Palantir has an investment in. Australia's new company would create 500 local jobs. President Joe Biden said that Australian electric vehicle charging company will build a U.S. manufacturing facility in Tennessee, and the plant would set off a ripple effect that benefits workers and the planet as a whole. The facility in Lebanon, Lebanon, east of Nashville, is expected to produce as many as 30,000 vehicle chargers annually, and create 500 jobs. Biden said electric vehicles in the U.S. will become quick and easy. That foundation will help build America, help American automakers set the pace for electric vehicles, which means even more good-paying jobs producing batteries, materials, and parts. So obviously, let's back up a little bit. Biden wants this to happen because he wants more of the jobs to become electrified, to become clean, so we can shut down plants that are bad for the environment, but not take away the jobs from those people that are working in those plants. Now, Biden is also what we call a blue collar type of president, right? He's the guy from the Midwest that can talk to anybody. He's supposed to be down with the unions, down with the workers. So for him to, get the publicity of creating more jobs that are in his wheelhouse, right? Because you could say a new technology company starts and they deploy a bunch of software engineers. That doesn't mean crap for Biden, right? Biden's not like he doesn't care about the software engineers. He cares about the people in the battleground states that he's trying to win in 2024, making sure they know that he's doing things, like actually doing things, to be able to give them more jobs. So obviously from a political perspective, that's very good for him, and this looks very good for him. Me, someone who's very apolitical on this, I don't give a I just want Palantir to do well, and Tritium and Tritium looking good because they're bringing more jobs obviously is going to make Palantir look good as well. Now, Tritium chief executive officer said her company decided to invest more heavily in its American operations after seeing demand surge following the passage of the Biden administration's infrastructure package last year. So that infrastructure package that we talked about in the tweets basically created more demand for electric vehicle charging stations because there's more electric vehicles. That eventually accelerated both plans to open a North American plant, as well as expectations for how many chargers could ultimately be produced annually. She says that was a really big step change for the company, and we see that North American market getting even bigger again next year, potentially even taking over what's traditionally been for us in Europe, our major revenue source. Now, why does she mention Europe? Because on December 16th, 2021, over 100 new Tritium fast chargers were added to the Osprey charging network in the United Kingdom. So Europe has been a market they've been attacking for a while. The Osprey charging network is a pretty big network in the United Kingdom in which a lot of cars are able to go through those charging stations. Think of Osprey as like a BP or a Shell, right? It's like a big brand name in the UK. And Tritium was adding their electric vehicle charging stations there, which means if they were expanding heavily into the UK, and now this North American infrastructure bill that was passed made them decide to go more into North America, then that means that there's a big opportunity for them to grow. They write, Tritium evaluated a number of potential factory sites, including Texas, before ultimately deciding on Tennessee because of a combination of tax incentives, logistics advantages, and labor ability in that state, the company said. Many of the workers at the factory would only need a few weeks of training to begin building the chargers, which is absolutely phenomenal. It's an announcement about manufacturing what the Biden administration's legislation has done to draw companies onto the country, grow jobs onshore, grow manufacturing onshore, and I think it's just a lovely example of that, the CEO said. Final thing I want to say on this article real quick before we do some analysis on Palantir. The White House said its goal to build a national network of at least 500,000 electric vehicle charging stations by the end of the decade. The infrastructure law includes $65 billion for upgrades to the national's electric grid, $7 billion earmarked to bolster the supply chain for electric vehicles, and $7.5 billion specifically earmarked for charging stations, which means Tritium has a big job to do in Tennessee or Nashville, because if they can, or Tennessee, right? Tennessee. In Tennessee, in the U.S. manufacturing in Tennessee. If they're able to do this, I'm such an idiot. Nashville is in Tennessee. Wow. Okay. Flame me in the comments. I get it. This is what happens when you're not from the South and you're on the East Coast. If there's $7.5 billion allocated towards electric charging vehicle stations, specifically, not electric vehicles, not supply chains for electric vehicles, $7.5 billion for electric vehicle charging stations. If Tritium can show that they're able to produce jobs and good quality product in Nashville, there is a massive opportunity for them to get an even bigger slice of that $7.5 billion. They're not going to get all of it. It's probably going to be allocated in a lot of ways. But if the government's like, Tritium's doing it, like we should have, Tritium's good. They know how to create stuff. They're creating jobs. They're paying well, and they're good stuff that we can trust. And we partner with them in 2022. Seems like they're working. We might as well give them some more deals, and they start building other little plants all across the United States. I mean, you're talking about potentially Tritium charging stations being everywhere in the next 10, 20 years across the United States and having a really big size of the market share when it comes to charging stations. Now, ExxonMobil, Shell, BP, none of these gas stations can ever really be a monopoly because like you need so many gas stations. That's a good stat. Someone should Google this. I should have Googled this, but someone should comment this. Well, how many gas stations are there in America? Because if I Google gas station near me, there's probably like 10 of them, like literally a mile or 2 miles away, right? If all of those cars that are going to be going to those gas stations in the next 10 years are going to be electric, then that means there's going to need to be hundreds of thousands of millions of electric vehicle charging stations, not only in the United States, but around the entire world if the entire world is electrifying. This is a massive, massive market opportunity. And what I said in that Tritium video 2 weeks ago that I did on Palantir was that Palantir is trying to be the frontier of the next industries, and they can't do everything. But the whole idea behind this Spac investment strategy is let's put a lot of money into these companies that we think have a chance to become the next frontier of their own industry. We have an equity stake in them. They're using Foundry. They're setting the precedent that if anyone wants to be a market leader within this industry, you have to be using Palantir software because Palantir software is the backbone of the infrastructure that's allowing that company to be at the frontier of its own industry, which means it's just a win-win at the end of the day for Palantir. So I don't want to get too excited on this. I know I sound excited, but my point is they picked a good one with Tritium. Now, I don't know about the other 14 SPACs if they're going to work out. They bet on a biotech. I don't know if that biotech's going to work out, but like two of them that I've been bullish on, Tritium and Wejo, are working really well. And the stock price might not reflect that, whatever. Like, I don't even care about the stock price anymore. When earnings comes up, I'll care a little bit about the stock price, see what happens. I care about what's being done in the company. What are they doing? Because none of these stock prices, to be honest, match a lot of the reflections of what companies are actually doing right now. Like, I want to know, what is this company doing? How are they going to expand? How are they going to take their operations further? And what foundations are they setting up in place so that when the market finally recognizes what's going on, it's going to be really late for a lot of people because the buying is just going to happen at an immense level because they're going to realize, oh shoot, like this is actually happening right now. That's what I'm excited for. But you've got to be patient while that's happening. And the fun thing while you're being patient is if you're analyzing what's happening and you're keeping a keen and acute focus on what's happening, then it becomes really interesting to cover what's actually happening. So Tritium and Joe Biden are doing pretty well together. Tritium's building a plant in the United States. They're getting some of that infrastructure money. If they're going to be able to build more plants, potentially have major market share where you go to see a lot of Tritium charging stations all across the United States in the next 10 years, that's going to be a lot of money coming into Tritium, making Tritium one of the world's most valuable electric vehicle charging stations that Palantir bought a part of a decade ago before it becomes what it becomes. All of that shareholder value, or all of that value, is going to come back to Palantir, resulting in eventual shareholder value for us. I don't know how this all plays out, but I like where it's going, and I like seeing this stuff happen. And ultimately, these are the types of updates that I like seeing with their SPAC investments, because these SPAC investments are very risky. And right now, they're down on a lot of their investments because the stock prices for these SPACs are absolutely outrageous, just given that growth stocks have been getting crushed. So it's really good news to see that the companies are actually making progress, and they're not like just cheap penny stocks. They may look like cheap penny stocks, but they're actually doing stuff, and their stock price is likely not reflecting the reality of what they're doing. Super, super dope stuff. Let me know what you guys think in the comments. This was awesome news. Tritium SPAC investment by Palantir. Looking forward to reading comments. My name is Mitt. Thank you so much for watching. I will see you in the next one.